Introducing Carvana Value Tracker, where you can track your car's value over time and learn what's driving it. It might make you excited.
Whoa, didn't know my car was valued this high.
It might make you nervous.
Uh-oh, market's flooded. My car's value just dipped 2.3%.
It might make you optimistic.
Our low mileage is paying off. Our value's up.
And it might make you realistic.
Car prices haven't gone up in a couple weeks. Maybe it's time to sell.
But it will definitely make you an expert on your car's value. Carvana Value Tracker. Visit Carvana.com to start tracking your car's value today.
Weddings are a celebration of finding the perfect fit. And with Indochino, you can design a custom suit made to your measurements. Go to INDOCHINO.com and use code PODCAST for 10% off any order of $3.99 or more.
Hello, EggChasers. It's the EggChasers Rugby Podcast, the podcast about rugby that doesn't take itself or the game too seriously. And how many days are we from the World Cup beginning now?
Can't come soon enough, can it, boys?
11 days.
Yeah,
11
something
days.
less than 2 weeks.
11 days till a lot of people lose a lot of jobs.
Do you reckon there's some P45s being drafted as we speak?
I would say so. I'd say if I was Bill Sweeney, I would not be very comfortable. I would be drafting my CV and airing my bona fides about my inclusion and diversity programs, which have been so successful. That's what I'd be doing.
That is JB gleefully basking in another awful day for England.
Well, no, do you know, this might be the best thing for England because it's a step closer to Bill Sweeney leaving.
And Phil is going to try and make some sense of what we've seen over the weekend.
Hello, Tim. Hello, JB.
Yeah, and I'm Tim. A week tomorrow, I'll be flying to France.
Wow.
So you're picking your car up there?
Yeah, from Paris.
Nice.
From Paris.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
That is exciting.
Well, you've got some herd of elephants in your kitchen, maybe upstairs.
Children and whatnot.
Ballet practice.
Right, we've already touched on England, and we absolutely. If you've come in, and we've had so many messages from people going, "Pod, where's the pod?" For our Scottish / Irish / American / anywhere else in the world listeners, we've had a bank holiday weekend, so. It's an extended weekend. We're here together on the Monday, which is replacing the usual Sunday. Apologies for that, but it's there for people in England.
Well, let's be honest, it wouldn't work, would it? Because we've done Sundays and before. There's a bank holiday, we do a Sunday and then we go out drinking. So actually, you probably get an hour of content when we kind of cared and then 10 minutes where we just want to go.
Yeah.
So it's probably best just to wait.
We're kind of dialing it in normally on a bank on a Sunday because we're going, let's get out on the pitch.
Yeah, England lost, yep. Okay, South Africa won, fantastic. See you for the World Cup, 11 days. Let's go get hammered.
Yeah, so you're getting the full podcast experience right here because we've hung on 24 hours. Thank you for that. If you want to support us, you can contact us by emailing contact@eggchasers@gmail.com. You can get extra and quite often spicy content at patreon.com/EggChasers. That helps keeps the lights on. We are the only podcast there for you 52 weeks of the year. Not like these Johnny-come-latelys. Some of them just arriving just for the World Cup, and then they'll be gone again in 2 months.
Unbelievable.
And they'll be pretending they care about rugby all the time. We really do, and we bring that to life with a podcast every single week. So we will talk about England, but let's just put that on ice for a minute, because I think it's important to spread the love around and actually celebrate some of the great stuff that's been going on. And South Africa, New Zealand, what a spectacle they put on at Twickenham. It was nice to see Twickenham with 2 teams playing rugby.
Hang on. What?
And full.
Sorry.
Full.
Yeah, actually.
2 teams playing rugby. Did you watch this game?
Good point. Only one team managed to play some rugby.
It was very much like Twickenham normally, from what I could tell.
It's true, actually. New Zealand did do an uncanny impression of England, didn't they?
Didn't they?
New Zealand were genuinely dreadful. They were the closest thing I've seen to England other than England this year.
Well, you know me, I'm not one for confirmation bias, but there'll be a lot of it in this episode. And it just proves to me, like, empty skills. New Zealand are just empty skills. There was a period of play where they were offloading left, right and centre, and they were breaking the South African line, and then they just get absolutely smashed. And I think, all things being equal, skills are lovely. 2 similar-sized players, pick the skills. But when the players are so much more brutal and physical, what are you going to do? You're absolutely screwed. And South Africa, thank God for bringing sanity back to rugby. Rugby is about big physical men battering other slightly less big physical men.
I think that's yes, you're right. South Africa definitely did do that, but I think that there is a clear evolution in this South Africa team from 4 years ago.
I think that's a good point.
They are doing some wild stuff in the backfield.
Well, yeah, talk about that.
We just got gas to burn, which they always had the threat of it, but they would bully teams, and then when teams tired, they would expose the gaps. They're going earlier, more often, and from deeper, and it's having it's really dangerous.
I would say that they are just a slightly better version of what they did before. I'm not entirely sure I agree that they've reinvented it. Esterhuizen is a more physical version of Deolandi. I mean, he just runs. I mean, that's the last thing you need, isn't it? When you've got the South Africa pack, and just to give him a rest, you give it to Esterhuizen. That is frightening.
For a first ever professional game of rugby at outside centre, Kanan Moody.
What a god of a rugby player.
He was also. I was so disappointed that disallowed try was a disallowed try, but he looked ace.
He is something. He's a world superstar in the making. And by the way, he's replacing one of my favourite players on the planet in Lekano Am. Lekano Am is a Rolls Royce of a player. And now they've got Moody to replace him. I think they're just a little bit more dangerous man for man. That would be the big difference. Wilhelmsey? Fullback? Wilhelmsey. I always get him.
Excuse me.
They did have Willie LaRue, and he was great. But this guy, I think, is a cut above again. The way he moves his feet, the all-round game he has, the passing game, the kicking game, the physicality that he can bring. I mean, I absolutely love him. I mean, I've liked him for a long time. I've liked him at 10. And then Libok as well. He really came of age. And when he decides to play, they look different because he brings extra to what Pollard did.
Right, I'll come to you, Phil, in a sec, but I'm just going to throw a devil's advocate point in here. We were maybe too quick 4 years ago to make judgments based on the first game for these teams in the World Cup when South Africa were handily beaten. And I don't want to jump to conclusions here as well, because we must remember, and this has got to have an impact, New Zealand had been in England for 5 days.
Yep.
See, 5... So...
And they hadn't played for a good full 2 weeks before that.
Yeah, I think... So, I think people are making more of that than it should be. Certainly from the New Zealand press that I've read, they're blaming the travel schedule, and the travel schedule will have an impact. It shouldn't have a 28-point impact.
No.
Fair.
And the physical. But I would compare New Zealand, who comfortably beat South Africa 5 weeks ago in the Rugby Championship, comfortably beat Australia and Argentina, Australia twice, and have won all their matches this year at a canter, basically, including handily beating South Africa in the Rugby Championship. So I don't necessarily think that we should, if you were a New Zealand fan, you should throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, this proves that New Zealand aren't up for it, this proves that South Africa are too physical.
On the New Zealand point, I think what we're seeing with New Zealand is a team with more variance of performance. So under Fozzie, they can win games, and they can win well, like they did with South Africa. But I think the big difference is they lack the consistency of past All Blacks teams. So we've seen this multiple times. We've seen it against Argentina. We've seen it against Ireland. We've seen it against South Africa. It's not to say that they can't beat those teams on a different day, but they're just not as consistent as previous All Blacks. And I think that is the big difference between the two regimes which they had and have.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Consistency is... It's not up there. And certainly the 4 games prior to this one that we'd seen this year, they were very, very good. For much of last year, they were not very, very good, and it's effectively the same team with 95% the same personnel, the same coaching setup. So probably consistency is right, but that does mean that they can beat anyone on their day. And
true.
if I were France, I would be concerned. Like, France are going into this, going into the tournament favourites, going into that game favourites. And
New Zealand were favourites before.
Were they?
On Friday, before Friday, New Zealand were
they?
bookies' favourites for the tournament.
So, were they?
Yeah.
Really? So I imagine that's changed, but I think I would put France at kind of 55-45 going into that game, even having seen New Zealand being taken apart and France playing the way that they did against Australia.
I still think that the tournament could well be bookended New Zealand-France, New Zealand-France. First game, last game.
Quite possible.
I think you could be right.
Possible,
yeah.
So New Zealand have a problem, in my opinion. I imagine that it's a similar problem to England have, and there'll be somebody listening in New Zealand or is a New Zealander in the UK who'll be ripping out their hair when I say this, as Tim will also be ripping out his hair as I say this. But their problem is a captain that might not necessarily be a captain.
Well, okay, so as a rugby player, I think Sam Cane has been good this year. He got the yellow card, then he got taken off after 55 minutes. So not a great night for him on Friday. But then a lot of New Zealand players, you can say the
Did
same.
Did Sam Cane get a yellow card on Friday?
Friday. He got the yellow card early in the game, didn't he? Got the first.
He might.
I
just can't remember.
There was the team one for obviously the Scotty Barrett. And who got the other one? There was because there was two in the first
72.
half.
I can't remember.
It was Sam Cane. Yeah, it was Sam Cane.
Yeah, on 15 minutes.
Anyway, so it wasn't a great night for him, but a lot of New Zealanders you can say that about, so I'm not going to jump to any huge conclusions there. I will say as a rugby player, he surprised me how good he was in the Rugby Championship. He was good.
He was good in the Rugby Championship,
He's definitely okay.
But his captaincy, I think, is only when you see the impact of Sia Khaleesi, who is not yet fully fit. And he's a great rugby player, but he's not the best open side in the world. Sia Khaleesi is the best leader. The way he dealt last week with who was it, Villy LaRue mouthing off at the ref, and the way he just diffused that situation in Cardiff, and I think it's an intangible. I think it is his effect on the team, the kind of calmness, the control,
Well, he's also iconic.
The focus. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions, but there seems to be a marked difference in the way South Africa go about their business when he is in the team.
So Sam Cane has got some problems. One, I don't think he's world class. I mean, he's very, very good because he wears an All Black jersey, so he has to be very good.
Who would you pick instead?
I don't know.
Papali'i.
Papali'i is the only shout, but he's kind of hot and cold as well.
Yeah, I
just don't think he's.
I probably would have Papali'i over Sam Cane, partly because Sam Cane is an injury risk. Like in one of the games, I can't remember which one, might have been the South Africa game in the Rugby Championship, he went off with a neck complaint. And for a man with a history of neck complaints,
not great.
That is concerning going into 7 games in 6 weeks.
Consider the situation the man's been put in. He's a 7, and the last All Black captain, well, actually it was Kieran Reid, the last one. The one before that, the iconic 7 is of course Richie McCaw, and I don't think he can ever really live up to that. I think it's very, very difficult. He'll never be that good.
Well, you've just named, along with Wayne Shelford, there's another back row player, the 3 greatest in the sort of semi-modern era, the greatest New Zealand captains ever.
So that's kind of the standard he needs to be to inspire New Zealand. It's not an easy job. I think Jack Morgan will find this out the hard way too. Anyway, I just feel that because he's captain, he has to be picked. It just doesn't inspire confidence in me. But there again, this is what I'd say about Owen Farrell. And there are legions of loyal England fans and Farrellists, as I like to call them. Farrellites, who will say, no, he's a great leader. He's the world's greatest leader, and he should always be in the team. And I'm not entirely sure either of them
the other question is, I'm just thinking across that team and going, who would I like to be New Zealand captain?
Retallick or Whitelock. Yeah. Obviously, Retallick didn't play at the weekend, but Retallick or Whitelock. Other than that,
Aaron Smith. Aaron Smith is just such a fantastic player for them.
Yeah, he is a great player.
Would he manage a referee?
Don't know. Just never seen it.
Just on Sia Khaleesi, I do agree. He is not the best 7 in South Africa, or 6, or whatever he's supposed to be.
It's open side.
Open side.
He's not the best, but he does have an aura about him. He
does some lovely things as well.
I mean, he's okay. He's a good player. He is a good player. Like the guy I loved watching this weekend, who probably will not start, but they find a place for him, is Quagga Smith. Yeah. His work on the outside channels, it was frightening. The way he manhandles people out of the way, I just
and the breakdown.
His
work at the breakdown is awesome. I did love the fact that both teams named a 6-2 split on the bench, and then who was it that dropped out? The
re-raise.
The reserve utility back. Was it Jesse Creel? No. Anyway, was it Jesse Creel? Yeah. Jesse Creel dropped out to be replaced by Quagga Smith. So the 6-2 got re-raised to a 7-1.
I think it works. I'm a huge fan of it.
I guess with Quagga Smith and Cobus Reinert, because Reinert came onto the wing, he is fast enough to play in the wing, and Quagga is kind of deadly enough to play almost anywhere across that back line.
I think Faf has played 10 for Sale before. He definitely has.
Yeah.
Libbok can move around.
Delemsa can move around.
Yeah,
Moody can move around. Aransi can move around.
They can all move around.
They've got a lot of utility players, even though those utilities are kind of specialist in one position.
I love the violence that Quagga Smith brings because he's not that big compared. Well, I mean, I bet if he's here, he'd be massive. But
I don't think he is that big. I don't think he is that big. Let me just look him up
for you. He's basically a huge scaffolder.
It'd be similar size to Ben Earl, I reckon.
Yeah. I'd say maybe 6'1" and 103 kg or something like that.
If you're going to hang with the Springboks pack and you're 6'2", you better be a special type of psychopath. And that's exactly what he brings.
The first two things, that cannot be right.
Well, look at the guy's nose if you want to get
6 foot. I think he's not even 6'2", you know.
Look at the man's nose.
He's listed as 180 centimetres, which is 5'11".
Wow. No.
And he's listed... Now, this is his Wikipedia page, which I would take with a pinch of salt. I'll find his South Africa Form 1. He's listed as 98 kg.
It's like 15 stone.
No.
So I don't quite believe... I mean, the height thing, I'll believe it. It's kind of like Hooper or Pocock. But I think even they are heavier than that.
Yeah, they must be. He can't be under 105.
Right? Can I? While Phil's doing that, can we just talk about Scott Barrett for a second? Because he was cited, and I'm assuming, I haven't checked Twitter or anything, but I'm assuming there's a massive meltdown happening right now, and World Rugby are about to intervene with an appeal to overturn the decision not to upgrade Scott Barrett's second yellow card to a straight red card.
Can I just say about the Scott Barrett thing, not without rehashing, because I know you have deep and lasting feelings about the Owen Farrell situation. But I feel Scott Barrett's intervention in that game and what he did is infinitely worse than Owen Farrell.
Well,
infinitely
worse.
So
that goes to my point. So again, let me check Twitter. Let's say, oh no, there's absolutely no reaction whatsoever to an incident which only got a yellow card and was, as you say, JB, I completely agree, magnitudes worse than what Owen Farrell and many other high tackle decisions do. Because
the high tackle is a split second decision. Very seldom are they malicious. I think what Scott Barrett did was probably a bit malicious there. And that deserves a different sort of sanction.
Delicious or stupid, reckless to a stupid degree.
Scott Barrett also does have history with that.
He does.
As well, with Michael Hooper. You got a red card about 3 or 4 years ago.
And a lot of people's justification, in fact, just in comments on when I said this was a cheap shot, a definition cheap shot is the way I described it on a YouTube video, and loads of the comments were, there was not head contact though.
Who gives a shit?
But it's like yeah, okay. The head contact framework is there for tackles. This was not a tackle. This was a man dropping all 115 kgs of his body.
It's just worse.
Onto a player lying on the floor, completely out of the game. It
doesn't matter if he's 90 kgs. This is not I'm not a big one for this. Mustn't happen in our game. And I kind of think if you could get away with it, by all means do so. But if you get caught, it is wrong, and you should be punished. You should be punished in accordance to the law.
So maybe the judiciary and maybe the TMO bunker have applied the laws correctly, and if that is the case, the laws are completely wrong, and we've got this weird, skewed relationship with the laws based on head contact alone, which is...
Yes, finally coming around to my way of thinking now. Did you read Michael Alwyn today in The Guardian?
No.
So Michael Alwyn is a sort of journalist who he writes frequently, but once every now and again he gets angry or really invested and writes an absolute stonker of a piece, and it'll stand out. So the last one he did prior to this was Worcester Warriors, where he did all of the diagrams of all the different companies and whatnot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So when he turns it on, he really turns it on. In wrestling parlance, it's a thing like Bret Hart, something like that. So he wrote a article today about the red cards and how rugby is ruining itself, because all we're looking at is, and this is my argument from months ago, which is they are targeting head contacts and concussions, like knockouts, without actually looking at the bigger problem, which is, of course, what is it, everyone? Subconcussive hits. And he's absolutely right. So they're trying to make rugby palatable to the masses by getting rid of the overt stuff.
It's optics, not science and data.
100%. 100%. So we end up punishing players like Owen Farrell, who deserves to be punished just anyway, right? But
just for who he is.
Just for who he is, right?
From Wigan.
But like, we are punishing players for making split-second decisions in a game which involves a lot of contact, a lot of moving pieces. It's more explosive, faster than it's ever been before. And we're saying, you are bad, you change your behaviour, here's a red card. Now, I don't agree with that approach. I think the red cards, I just don't like the amount of red cards. But we're not solving the problem. The problem is long-term health consequences. Only one thing will solve that: less subconcussive hits. What's going to solve that? Less rugby.
It's not about solving the problem, JB.
It's not about solving the problem.
It's not about solving the problem.
Yeah, so when you listen to... So there are some other podcasters out there who are who's outraged by sort of thing, because they simply don't understand the science. They simply haven't, and because they've never played, they can't sit back and think, what is the problem here? The problem is subconcussive hits and professionals having major brain damage from their brains rattling around. There was one game, Alwyn pointed out, which had 500 tackles in it. That is mental.
500?
500 tackles. That is insane. And the people paying the price for the pro game going absolutely wild, which is what it is doing, and is unrestrained in the amount of games that you play and the hours that you play. And well, actually, I think there is a constraint on games, but it's not nearly enough. Is the grassroots game, and you've got absolute clowns, chimpanzees like Bill Sweeney, who are backing. And all the guys in World Rugby who are backing changes in the grassroots game to affect us for things we've never done. So to pay for their incompetence at managing the pro game. It drives me absolutely wild. Anyway, Alwyn's article was spot on.
I will look that up. I'll read that.
Yeah, I will read that. I share the frustration that I think we're just fed platitudes that it's about making the game safer and solving the problems. It's not. It's actually, if they were honest, they would say, we want to appear to be doing something and we want to try and placate people that have an issue.
We'll talk
not actually make the lives of people any better.
Well, we'll talk about honesty in detail later when we come to England. Yeah. But yeah, I've got a lot to say about the hierarchy of
Phil, you look like you were about to say something.
Yeah, just back to the Scott Barrett point, and I've briefly read the World Rugby announcement. I've not read the full report, although they did publish it instantly, refreshingly, unlike the Farrell one, which took a full week or so for it to come out. And the snapshot I think is interesting, and it might, if they were being consistent with how World Rugby dealt with Farrell, this could lead to an appeal, I think. I'll just read this one sentence.
It's not going to. It could.
It's not going to.
They're not going to do it because it's not Owen Farrell, and there isn't a big.
Well, there's
another angle to this. So you can finish that.
Yeah, if they were being consistent, I think there is grounds to it. And let me explain my point once I've read this sentence. The Independent Judicial Committee found that the sending off was a sufficient sanction in this case because the player was sent off for 2 yellow cards, referred to as temporary suspensions in the appendix, and the first of those yellow cards was for a technical offence following a team warning. So they've adjudicated it as 2 yellow cards, and because one of those yellow cards was only a technical offence, they've deemed that that is sufficient, so he is free to play as of now, if there was a game tomorrow. So he's definitely free for the France game. Now, there was a point that was made on WhatsApp groups that we were in during the game, which was, why haven't the bunker upgraded that second yellow card to a red card? Now, they didn't need to because it was a red card in the game, but they should have done for consistency, because that was a red card offence. That was, we've all pointed out.
Yeah, it's bizarre how it is.
It just, so, had that.
And in the laws of the game, it's a red card offence.
Oh, yeah.
Because head contact's immaterial next to reckless, dangerous player, isn't it?
It comes into the process, but it was with force. It was a prone player. It was shoulder to the head, neck.
No, because we've had JP Doyle on the podcast, and he talked. There is a catch-all.
Yeah, you've got the catch-all clause.
The catch-all of just dangerous or reckless play.
I would consider that in isolation as a red card offence. But there's a technicality here that because it wasn't upgraded to a red card in the game, and he only got 2 yellow cards, and one of those yellow cards was a technical offence, that's where this stops. So had the bunker have upgraded the second offence to a red card, which they should have done even though it was immaterial for the game, this should and would have been looked at very differently. So in my view, were World Rugby to be consistent, they should go back to this, appeal the decision, and say that's appeal the merits of the second yellow card getting upgraded to a red card, upgrade it to a red card, and then ban appropriately for that red card. Wow. But they won't do.
Well, they won't do, because as with what you were talking about, the attempt isn't to solve the issue, it's to have the optics. World Rugby are not going to do this because it's not about applying consistency. It's about reacting to people that tweet.
And what's the other thing which is going on here? So
go on.
So I'll tell you. Owen Farrell was red carded and let off by a panel which was organised by the Summer Nations Series. The Summer Nations Series...
Six
Nations.
Yeah.
This is not a Summer Nations Series event.
Correct.
So what you have is this clandestine warfare between the unions and World Rugby as to who owns international games. World Rugby would have loved to have organised the Summer Nations Series, but they didn't. So therefore, if they can create a little bit of trouble for the Six Nations, and the Six Nations is actually a very well-run organisation. It's as things go in rugby, this is probably as good as it gets.
Yeah, agreed.
So as soon as they have the opportunity to say, right, we'll stick it to Six Nations, they'll stick it to Six Nations. There's very little chance of World Rugby sticking it to themselves. I mean, they might do, but I don't think they will.
Oh, interesting subplot.
Yeah, because this is... It was outside the Summer Nation Series, therefore it will most likely have been a World Rugby convened panel. So you're right, for that reason as well. So there's two good reasons why they are not going to appeal this. But I believe if they were being consistent, they should do. And I would love nothing more than to see Scott Barrett play.
Consistent in wanting to stick it to Six Nations.
Six Nations.
No, I don't want
consistency there.
I don't want players to miss the games, but the consistency and the reaction to the reaction regarding Owen Farrell is what annoyed me. People can vent and say what they want online, but it's for the administrators of the game to hold true and be consistent, whichever direction that goes in. And,
yes.
Anyway.
Yeah,
but New Zealand can count themselves lucky because they've got no Brodie Retallick, and they would have been a bit threadbare.
Yeah, agreed. So that'll help them, whether it's enough for France. But we should talk a little bit more about South Africa because
you're right.
They were just so good.
The power game. Franz Malherbe, oh my God, he just destroyed Ethan de Groot. I've been talking up that New Zealand front row, and they just ate them.
Yeah,
they did, didn't they?
It was a tough night. Like when de Groot walked off the pitch.
Oh, crikey, what happened to Lomax's leg?
I know.
I've watched that a few times. I just can't understand how it happened. I didn't see a stud go into him, did you?
No, but you look at the gash that he had, and you sort of at first think, oh, it's just a gash. But actually, when you've had those things, they can be limiting.
So thank God it's that, because I thought it's like a knee or something, and I assume you can fix a gash much easier than a PCL.
You'd think so, yeah.
So
with
hopefully
glue staples or glue and staples.
Yeah, you can
butterfly stitch.
It's literally a flesh wound.
Yeah,
literally is. So I hope he gets well soon. But I thought they really struggled. I mean, if you like, Malherbe & Co. loosened the jaw, but the lid truly came off when the bomb squad. I hate that term. When the other lads came off.
Not as catchy though, is it?
I quite like the other lads.
They did a number in the scrums, the line out, with Peter Steph Toy and Moster picking them off just for fun, and the general all-round physicality and the line speed of South Africa, which put so much pressure on them, to the point where New Zealand at times they're just dropping balls from a simple one out because they were under so much pressure.
Well, empty skills. Like, everyone talks about skills. It doesn't matter when you're getting beaten up.
And you're getting punched in the face.
It simply doesn't matter. It's nice to talk about. This is another thing about, you go to an RFU coaching seminar. It's not a contact sport. It's a game of evasion with contact. It's like, well, you've obviously not played, because this is not how it works. Very rarely do skillful teams beat absolutely enormous teams.
Right, we're coming on half an hour now, so we can always come back to it. But
fair play, South Africa.
Yeah, fair play. We can rattle through some other games. Scotland, when they watch South Africa, would sort of think, right, we have to put a good performance in against Georgia with a pretty much full strength Scottish team, and they did.
Well, so I only watched the first half. Georgia were bloody good.
They
Georgia,
are good.
and Georgia's scrum was actually not their best. Scotland's scrum got on top for the first half, but Georgia's defence was heroic. And Georgia went in 6-0 up at half time. Georgia shut them down, and there was a number of times where Scotland kind of get the outside with Hugh Jones and Doohan and Kyle Steyn and Smith at fullback, and Georgia shut them down time after time after time. It was a really, really good performance in that first half. Now, I've seen the highlights of the second half and the Scotland tries, which they took very, very well, but I've not seen the game, and I assume Georgia ran out of steam, and Scotland did, when they were finding those edges round the outside, they were making it pay.
And also, I think the story this weekend, aside from that game on Friday night, was Tier 2 nations, and because Samoa very nearly gave Ireland a bloody nose.
Yeah.
They were good. They were really good. It's kind of comes back to something I said a few weeks ago, that these returning players that they're going to get, they're going to make a huge impact to what these teams do. Having Sopoaga
made a big difference first game back.
He's going to, though.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean, even though he's rubbish at Wasps, he is going to make a big difference because he's an ex-All Black, he's playing in top 14, he's just a good option to have.
And they have options as well, because they've got Christian Lealiafano.
Yep.
So they've got two very capable, very experienced international, like Tier 1 international calibre fly halves, which is often an area of weakness for Tier 2 nations, not just Pacific Island, all Tier 2 nations.
And then in that pack, Theo McFarland, I know he's just been out injured all season, but what a player. And Stephen Luatua.
Fritz Lee, Chris Vui.
Yeah, it's really good.
Jordan Taufua coming off the bench.
And now, of course, you're going... as an Englishman, I'm thinking, God,
defund them again.
Can we just scratch
Who came up with this rule?
This rule is
stupid rule.
Outrageous.
If and maybe when, but if England lose to Argentina, then that last game of the pool against Samoa on the 7th of October, I haven't even organised to go to that game, because I was just thinking, that's fine, I'll go.
Yeah, it'll just tick over.
And to be fair, Ireland v Scotland is on the same day. So
okay.
So
that is the focus.
That's the big one. But England Samoa could be a dynamite last day in that pool.
I think England will lose to Argentina. I really do. So Argentina had a warm-up game against Spain in Madrid, which we briefly mentioned last week, which would have been fantastic to go to, but it was a 62-3 hammering. It was a team 2 weeks out from a World Cup, and a team who sadly, for the second time in 4 years, did not make the World Cup.
Like in a travesty of justice.
Argentina had an easy run out. My only concern for Argentina is they've not really played since the Rugby Championship. They had the Rugby Championship and then one more game, which admittedly is 2 games against South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. So it's a tough schedule. Then they've had a few week break, and then they've just played Spain. If there was one international team, though, that don't need warm-up... They were in a hotel for about 3 months, then went to New Zealand and won for the first time ever. It's a great point, actually. They did it training... like doing 5Ks in their hotel rooms in total isolation. So you are right. But I think Argentina will win, regardless of whether they've had imperfect preparation. But other Tier 2 nations... Did you see any of Italy, Japan? No. Yes, I did. And I enjoyed it. But if you're a Japanese fan, you probably didn't enjoy it. Yeah. Now, I'm glad that Japan are in our group this time around. Were Japan in our group, in England's group, 4 years ago or 8 years ago, I would have been pretty concerned. This time around, I think even England should have enough to beat Japan, because they are not the team they were 4 years ago. I'm not sure about that. I won't go that far. Maybe not even England in the doom spiral of decline that we are currently in. But the story is actually Italy. Italy are a bloody good team. They are a really, really good team. They beat Australia last year. They pushed France close in the Six Nations this year. The problem Italy have is their grouping. Who are they in a group with? New Zealand and France. Yeah, they're screwed. That's a problem. Yeah. And I think, were Italy in, perhaps not the South Africa, Scotland, Ireland group, but were they on the other side of the pool, Italy would be making this seriously difficult for Australia, Wales, England, even Argentina, who are the best of the rest, in my opinion. Italy could beat any of those teams. So it's a story of a really good Italian side, and your boy JB, your beloved Benetton winger Monty Ioane.
Well, he's not a Benetton winger, is he?
Is he not?
No, I think he went to the Reds or something. But he is back.
Where's he go? Oh, he's gone to. So
is he Japan? Maybe.
No, he went to. He was Benetton until last year. He went to the Rebels.
That's the one.
But then he's come back, but to Lyon.
What? Oh, really?
Big money move to Lyon. Yeah.
Well, he needs to be getting well compensated.
He will be if he moved to.
God, Lyon have got some random players there.
And he scored 3 tries and he looked fantastic.
So, Lyon read, their team sheet reads just like a collection of all sorts. So they've got the young lock from Saracens.
Yeah, Kapoku.
Yeah, they've got this guy.
One of the Kapokus.
The guy you mentioned before for Samoa,
Tolofua.
They've got all sorts of bits and pieces.
Yeah, who else did I read? Oh, your favourite player?
I've got many favourite players.
Semi Randrandra.
Oh, yeah. He's a phenomenal talent. Yeah, they've got all sorts of bits.
Dumortier, Tim's favourite player.
Love him. He missed. Pierre Barret pinched his spot in the French squad. That's how good their young players are.
Paddy Jackson.
Paddy Jackson
he's gone to Lyon. Yeah.
Crikey,
Nene Ashvili, who's a quality player.
He's a class player.
Yeah. They've got Kuyu, who every time I see him I just love.
Yeah.
That was a replacement scrum half this weekend.
Yeah,
he was very good.
He was ace. France have got probably at least 3 scrum halves. So, God, England would kill for someone like Kuyu or Baptiste.
Give me Saran any day.
Yeah.
You would, wouldn't you?
You'd absolutely kill for one of those guys. Sadly, we're going to just churn out Karen Youngs again.
Classic.
Who else have they got? They got Cretin. They got Goujon. They got Felix Lombi, who you love.
Yeah, I've not heard anything from him recently. He was right on the cusp of being the French regular. And
yeah. He looked great. They got Demba Bamba.
He's off to Racing.
Is he?
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, let's talk about Lyon and like Ireland Samoa. Any more to add from that one? Because that was a Bananski. Ireland's squad was announced the day afterwards, and I was pleased to see your boy Big Stu made the cut. I didn't think he would.
Yeah.
Cian Prendergast, the one that missed out.
Yeah.
I will say something one thing about the Ireland game. So I had to turn the commentary off. I'm going to have to say this. I turned the commentary off. I am really starting to struggle with. You've got the person who does the commentary, which is great.
Like the Nick Mullins role.
The Nick Mullins role, if you like. Then you'll have the David Flatman role. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Now,
what do they call it in America? The colour...
The colour commentator.
Yeah, the play-by-play and the colour, right?
Yeah.
To put it in American parlance. Now, I don't know who was doing...
Introducing Carvana Value Tracker, where you can track your car's value over time and learn what's driving it. It might make you excited.
Whoa, didn't know my car was valued this high.
It might make you nervous.
Uh-oh, market's flooded. My car's value just dipped 2.3%.
It might make you optimistic.
Our low mileage is paying off. Our value's up.
And it might make you realistic.
Car prices haven't gone up in a couple weeks. Maybe it's time to sell.
But it will definitely make you an expert on your car's value. Carvana Value Tracker. Visit Carvana.com to start tracking your car's value today.
The United States Border Patrol has exciting and rewarding career opportunities with the nation's largest law enforcement organization. Border Patrol agents enjoy great pay, outstanding federal benefits, and up to $20,000 in recruitment incentives for newly appointed agents. If you are looking for a way to serve something greater than yourself, consider the United States Border Patrol. Learn more online at cbp.gov/careers/USBP. That's cbp.gov/careers/USBP.
The analysis on this game. It was, I assume, one of the England ladies from back in the day. But at this point, I'm just thinking, like, I understand that certain people higher up think that by having a female voice on the television, that we're going to expand the game exponentially and everything will be solved. And it won't be. Because I cannot understand for the life of me how a female analyst, who's meant to be able to empathise with what the players are going through, can possibly do that. Because from what I can tell, she's never spent a single second in the men's changing rooms, or indeed playing men's rugby. Like, it is almost impossible. You do not know what it feels like to be run over by a Samoan man until you've been run over by a Samoan man. Now, maybe she has. in her personal life or whatnot. But it just, how do you do this? So if the argument is, okay, well, she knows her stuff and therefore she should be on the TV to, give her opinion on stuff. Well, okay, well, if that is your criteria, why don't we just get any old analyst who just knows lots about rugby, or a journalist, or anybody?
Well, I would say that the female male is immaterial. Are they good? There's been
I completely agree with that
because I would say one person that got a lot of commentary time and doesn't get as much anymore, not because they're not a lovely man and actually have some good articles in the paper, but Shane Williams, for example, I think there are others that were better.
Completely agree.
And you don't hear him so much, and I think that's all I really want. Is just give me the best people, whoever they are.
I agree with that, except for this one thing with the analyst role, which is the whole point of them being there is the idea that they've done it before. And that's a big difference. So the commentator, I can definitely see a female commentator or female reporter or somebody like that rising all the way to the top based on the merits of what they do for their profession.
And there are several who are at the top.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Sarah Elgin is
and I guess
superb.
Superb, yeah. It does depend what you're talking about as well, I guess, because Emily Scarrett, for example, international outside centre, she can talk about running lines,
but
outside
she'll never
arcs,
know what it is.
Goal kicking.
But she'll never know what it is to be with a group of men prior to playing.
Well,
men and women feel
that's
very...
not the stuff. But the point is, if you're listening to an analyst talking about stuff where you're thinking you can only have a perspective on this, then they're not doing the analysis right. Because you can talk about what you can talk about, and I think Emily Scarrett's an example of someone who does it really well. She'll talk about the pressure of goal kicking, or
but it's never going to be the same. Like, it's never going to be the same as like.
But that's
Parc de France. Sorry.
But then David Flatman shouldn't be an analyst because
I kind of agree,
because he's only played a couple of caps. So how can he possibly know what it's like to play international rugby?
I kind of agree. What does David? I mean, when it comes to the World Cup, I mean, David Flatman's a great. I mean,
so is it just about getting CVs out and whacking your willy on the table and going?
I guess. To
that's nothing to do with the male-female thing. That's a figure of speech.
How many World Cups have you won?
How many World Cups have you won? Exactly.
It would be. David Flatman is a really, really good analyst, and he's probably the best for the Premiership because that's where he's played.
And he makes a joke of how he was not an international prop.
Well, I mean, who's a joke on him or us? But I would just say that for the World Cup, and also to be fair to Flats as well, he can do the commentary role and also the analyst role. So it isn't apples and apples there. I think when you are in a job and your job is to relay to the viewer what it is like to be on that field, you need to be able to relate it completely. Now, there are other roles.
I feel we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here when we haven't even touched on England yet.
No, there will be time for that.
I just think the best people for the job get the job.
Yeah, but then if that's the case, I mean, what are the parameters? Because if it is literally who just knows the most about rugby, who is the best analyst? Well, there are armies of analysts in clubs, and we just get them.
Yeah, but then it's not just about knowing. It's not about knowing stuff, is it? It's about David Flatman's a perfect example. It's about how you convey that. No,
David Flatman's a perfect example because he knows everything about the Premiership. That's where he's made.
Other people know more, but he expresses himself in a way that is either succinct, entertaining, or however you want to, whatever you want out of that. He can do that in a way other people can't.
And Austin
Healy's an amazing analyst because he not only
he is an amazing analyst.
Not because he played for the British and Irish Lions, although his rugby.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
not because he did.
Sorry.
But his rugby intellect will be part of the reason he was able to achieve the play at his level. But the fact is, there are a lot of people that play at that level that cannot see and explain rugby in the way that he does.
If you wanted just the best person, and you'll hate me saying this, right? But I actually think one of the best people at looking at a game and bringing it. This hurts my heart to say it. It'll hurt your heart too. Is someone like Squidge, some guy in his basement who watches rugby. But the reason we don't have him is because we want someone who's actually been out there and understands what it is like, to bind up with your mates, to be in the changing room.
Like you saying that Flats is great for the Premiership but not international.
Yeah,
I just don't.
He is good.
He is great.
Just that.
He is great for the Premiership, but he's one of the few people who explains a scrum. And I've been in almost no scrums in my entire life. Almost none. Almost none. So I know so little about scrums. But someone like Flatman, for example, explaining a scrummage just because he's not done it, or he's only done it on a handful of occasions at international level, he can explain that brilliantly
that is true.
to
and
me.
Also, he can also tell you what it is like to scrimmage against another male international prop, which is a very unique experience.
I would go with your point, Tim, that I when I've listened to Emily Scarrett, if listening to her analyse running lines, outside back moves, kicking sticks.
You're just making my point again, which is if it's just about the analyst part, go get an analyst.
No,
because she's not going to be the best analyst.
But it's more than that, and it's exactly to Tim's point. It's understanding it, but also putting it across in a way that's easy to understand. Like Flats is, but putting it across in a way that's easy to understand.
Get an analyst.
But
they can't put it.
There will be an army of people out there who can do this better.
Yeah,
okay. So if the international experience doesn't matter, if playing the game doesn't matter, just go and get literally the best person at that one specific role who's not a name, who can explain things and do.
But we're not saying that playing the game doesn't matter. We're saying that having the experience.
Well, she hasn't played the game.
But having the experience does matter. But she understands back moves. She understands what it's like to kick sticks.
Well, then back to my other thing. Go get an analyst.
But she's understand them because she's run them.
She has never played a second of men's rugby.
But I've never said she has.
Right.
So why are you saying that she hasn't?
Because
if you need someone who has played men's rugby, that is fine. But I think
no, not just men's rugby at the highest level.
Okay, well that's fine. Like, I just don't need that.
Okay, well,
if that is your parameters, then that's fine.
Sorry, I don't need it per se, but if I was to produce the best product, it would stand to reason that I would have that person, that type of person.
Okay, for you?
No, not for me. If I was to make the best product for the entire viewing public, not just for me. I'm not saying I could tolerate this or it's okay for me. If I'm out there to make the best possible product, you want somebody who can actually relay what it was like to be in that situation, not just analyse things. If that is the case, you just go and get an analyst. So by saying, she can analyse this, that and the other, that's fine. But I'm saying we need someone who's actually played the game at that standard, which is why I said about Flats. Like, he's missing some parts because he has not experienced that. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say.
Topsy Ojo was on comms over the weekend. He's not played international rugby.
Yeah, he has.
He has, but a handful of games, similar numbers to Flats. Although I have to say...
No, that's not knocking it, I'm just...
He commentated... he mentioned a couple of things of technical nature on scrummaging, and I did think...
Stop it. Yeah. Stop that.
You're a little bit out of your depth on that point. It is better to have... Because that was just him and Rupert Cox, wasn't it, on the Australia-France game?
Australia game.
I do like having a forward and a back. Someone who can see it from both angles.
Yeah, a comms team of 3 works well.
Yes.
But, it comes back to what I was saying... back to the studio too. Like, I don't know why they don't have a journalist there, like a really well-polished, knowledgeable journalist who knows absolutely everything because they're a nerd.
I would definitely have that.
For example, football. The one World Cup, I think it was the one in Brazil, and BBC used Tim Vickery, and he was absolutely brilliant. He's a journalist.
They used to do on Channel. I'm sure it was on Channel 4 where they did Italian football, and they would just get like British journalists who were deep into Italian football.
To go and join James Richardson sat having a cafe, sat having an espresso at a cafe.
Guillaume Balaguer.
Great example.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But I guess...
So I'd be all for that.
I'd get Charlie Morgan in
Charlie Morgan. There you go. So, this is the kind of point. If you've got a very defined idea of what you want... You can do these things. Like, so if you want experience, you can do that. If you want an analyst, you can do that. If you want a journalist, you can do that. I just struggle to see where an analyst who's never played the game, like a female journalist, it'd be great. No issues.
Female, male, I don't care. I subscribe to the kind of Martin Luther King thing. Judge me by the content of my character, not any other.
Martin Luther King's not played a second of England rugby either. I wouldn't want him.
And he should not be commentating
on rugby.
That'd be ludicrous.
I'm with you there.
So, back to the game. I've only seen the highlights, but this was a very, very close game, wasn't it? Ireland Samoa.
Yes.
As in, Ireland, other than a fluffed line out and a fluff line out from Samoa, this could have legitimately been a tier 2 team taking down the top ranked team in the world.
I actually watched this, but I've watched so much rugby this weekend. It's all merged into one.
This would have been. It was in Bayonne, so it wasn't at home like England were, but this would have been a bigger story than England Fiji. because, as you say,
yes and no.
World number one team.
Yeah, but it wasn't the starting team per se.
Quite a few.
It wasn't.
It'd
be a huge story.
It would be a huge story.
It would be a massive story.
And it was a
Samoa are lower
team.
ranked than Fiji.
Yeah.
Yes.
England have replaced Fiji at number 7 in the world.
England have replaced Fiji.
Sorry, Fiji have replaced
England.
Delighted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fiji are now 7, Argentina are 6,
But
and
this
then
would
the
be
top
like
5
this would have been like 12 beating 1.
Yeah, this would have been one of the all-time probably biggest ranking upsets with a Tier 1 nation involved.
Yeah. And Ireland, yeah, you're right. They weren't full bore, but
well, they're such a system team anyway.
Exactly, and that's one of the features of this Ireland squad. When you look at the squad, is the confidence they have in the players that come in.
Yes.
In any position.
Although there's a few...
Except for maybe hooker. There's a big drop down. Dan Sheehan, he is going to be fit, which is good, for at least the South Africa and Scotland games. Yeah,
which means that my boy who started this game, Tom Stewart, is out, sadly. Yeah. But he has got a bright future. He's a very young, very, very handy hooker.
Keane Healy is out.
Keane Healy, that is a bloke.
Right, Ireland released their squad today.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Was it yesterday, was it?
Yeah. Okay. They were going to do it today, but they moved it forward.
So, I read the squad. I'm not interested in that per se. Who has not made it? Who are the big names that have been excluded?
Jacob Stockdale, Cian Prendergast, Kieran Treadwell,
Keane Healy, who you just mentioned.
Injury.
Yeah.
The other 3 are not selected. And that's basically it, because it's such a settled squad. The decisions
there
were...
was only 37 prior to this.
So the decision was Keith Earls or Jacob Stockdale, basically.
No one's not taking Keith Earls.
On current form...
Definitely.
100%. Yeah.
And the only other decision was, do they go 19 forwards with Cian Prendergast in the back row, or do you go 18 forwards with...
Prendergast is the 8, isn't he? He had a great game.
Yeah. 8 second row flanker. So do you go for him, or do you go for Stuart McCloskey? And I was thinking they were going to go for Cian Prendergast, because you've got Bundy Aki, Robbie Henshaw both play 12. Jack Crowley can play 12.
Keith Earls can move into 13 if necessary.
Aki and Henshaw can go 13. Keith Earls can go 13. You've got Jimmy O'Brien can play 13. Yeah. So I thought Big Stu, only being able to play 12, was going to miss out, but he's made it.
Well, Big Stu is going to have his hands full with Big Andre. So I wonder if there's a little bit of a thought of the matchup going there. I am fascinated to see how Ireland go on, because in the back of my mind, I am thinking they go out in the group stage now. Because watching South Africa, they are going to... I think they're going to batter Ireland.
I'm so schizophrenic, because a couple of weeks ago I would have told you that Scotland were going to beat South Africa. After Scotland beat France and South Africa had a lukewarm rugby championship, I was like, give me Scotland.
Let me just run this past you, okay? I don't know which way the games fall, and I should know, but I don't. But
first game, Scotland, South Africa.
Okay, so South Africa win that.
Okay.
Do South Africa then play Ireland?
Third game.
And when do Ireland play Scotland?
Last game.
Perfect. So this is perfect for me. So I think
Ireland are going to beat South Africa, and South Africa are going to beat Scotland.
No, I think South Africa absolutely trounced Ireland. They really shake them up because they're so physical. I'm very confident in South Africa's progression with relatively few hiccups.
So South Africa are qualified.
Yeah.
After
now, Ireland are going to be dusting.
This is like a
off.
Brian Moore.
Yeah.
Run through.
Like, they're going to be dusting themselves off. They're going to feel that they need to put in a big performance in a World Cup. And in the back of their mind, all those Leinster bottlers, which they have plenty of, and all the Ireland World Cup ghosts will be in the back of their mind. But this can't be it, boys, because we're the best Ireland team ever. But who is the team you would least want to get into a gunfight with?
Scotland.
Correct. Right. Scotland come out all guns blazing because they need to win too. Finn Russell throwing the ball everywhere, and before you know it, all of Ireland's carefully choreographed, carefully practiced moves and set piece and everything else. They're like, we've got to score, because Finn Russell will not stop scoring. It doesn't matter what we do, we can't stop these boys. So the only way to stop them is to score more points, and then they just fall to pieces bit by bit by bit by bit.
I would love some Finn sanity in that knockout, the knockout pool game.
And then you will wave all the Irish back home.
So Ireland are going to...
They're not going to make...
They're going to break the quarter-final curse by not getting to a quarter-final. That last game against Scotland is going to be dynamite.
It's such a tough group, that.
Scotland can score against anyone.
From anywhere.
From anywhere.
From absolutely anywhere. At any time.
Imagine how unsettled that's going to be for
Who
Ireland.
do you think, though, pressure? Because I'm thinking...
Johnny Sexton, come on, boys, let's run this ball.
They've got Andy Farrell, Mike Catt, and they've got their team there well settled. They've got leaders. They've got guys that have been around the block. They listen to the names, Tig Furlong and Andrew Porter and Dan Sheehan and Tig Byrne. James Ryan is
who's
amazing.
captain the team.
Caelan Doris and Jack van der Fleer, Peter Armani. You go through the whole team. I see less chance of them psychologically imploding and more chance of Scotland psychologically imploding, or at least holding it together enough that they'll just do enough.
All those demons will be running through every one of those Leinster players.
I was going to say, you could have said an almost identical statement when Leinster were however many points, 17 points up in the final.
Yeah, they couldn't even win with 17 points.
However far up they were, so far ahead.
They couldn't even do that. I'm looking forward to them. And do you think Finn Russell's going to walk into that game overawed? I don't. I think he'll be doing kick-ups on the way out.
He'll be having his headphones in, doing a little dance, doing his kicks. That's what I love about Finn Russell. And he's going to be in Paris. He'll feel at home.
He will. Yeah.
It's too perfect, boys. It's too perfect. Hear me now, believe me later. If you want a tasty triple for betting, Ireland not to get through, England not to get through, Wales not to get through. £100 will get you 31,000 quid.
It's not impossible. That is not impossible. I think Wales are not getting through. I think they will struggle against Georgia. They will really struggle against Fiji, and they will lose. To God, they will lose to Australia, because Australia did get pumped by France on the Sunday. Australia, there's some pleasing stuff watching that.
I'm going to make a suggestion, because we're almost at the hour mark. I reckon we have this completely devoid of England, and we just do a pod,
an England pod.
England pod.
Ooh, I would do that. Yeah.
Just
another hour on England.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's talk France, Australia. I've got to say that the stash at this World Cup is outstanding across the board. France is quite possibly the best of the lot.
Yeah, I think France is the best of the lot.
Do you think France's was the best when it was the red and white on the arm that went all the way down the side? I think that might be one of my favourite international
I saw a highlight
kits.
of a French team. In comms, I can't remember which one it was, but it was magnificent. Which one was it now?
There was one where they had the tricolor running all the way down the side.
It was one with the redesigned yet old-fashioned cockerel. Then when they had the really large.
Okay, I know the one.
What just the red cockerel?
Oh God, it was nice. It is nice.
I love the fact they had Le Coq Sportif as well. So you got double cock on the set.
Yeah,
good.
That is cool. One thing I'm less certain about is the massive Altrad brand.
That won't be there for the World Cup.
No, it's got to go, isn't it?
Of course.
Got to go.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's great. And also, I like whatever combination France put together, and they put the all blue together against Australia. But I do like it when they have the tricolour colours.
Yeah, agreed.
Blue shirt, white socks, red socks.
Yeah, white shorts. There.
It looks great.
Let's start.
They just always look great.
They do always look great.
So let's start with one of my favourite players. I've got a big thing for big inside centres. Jonathan Dancy is proving he is a proper international player.
Yeah,
I was thinking of Dancy the other day. I was thinking he is not as talented as France's other famous big centre, Bastereau. He's just not. He's not as good a footballer. His lines aren't as good.
There's been Vakatawa in recent memory as well. Oh, he's 13, wasn't he? But
yeah, he's 13, and he was like a bit more, Fijian, I'd guess. So I was just thinking about the two, and I thought, but Dancy is kind of what Bastereau could have been physically if he'd taken care of himself.
Because Jonathan Dancy, he's not that tall.
No, he's not.
He's 5'11", but he's 110 kg.
God, he's powerful.
And Bastereau is probably an inch or two taller than that, but he was a good 15 kg heavier. But not. There was no extra good weight on Bastereau. There was just all extra bad weight.
Bastereau was like.
It was amazing. Bastereau was as good as he was.
Yeah,
but he was so talented.
Basically carrying like a 10 kg backpack around with him.
More.
Like, his hands,
Definitely more than 10 kg.
Lines running, like everything he did was so underrated because he's such a big bloke.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, he's just no, he wasn't. He was absolutely superb.
What was the story? Was that him at a World Cup when he fell over and hit a table?
Oh, was it World Cup or was it? I think it was. I think it was a tour to New Zealand.
Well, he fell into a lift or something, didn't he? Something ridiculous.
Well,
Did
he
he
accused.
bullshit?
Yeah. Didn't. I'll look this up. But in my head, he accused the generic New Zealand population of attacking him, but it had happened that I think that I'm remembering this right. He basically just had one too many brandies in his room and fallen over.
So I thought it was the other way around. I thought he was attacked, and to hide the fact that he'd gone out, he then said he fell on a table.
I think it's the other way round, but
I think he fell over in his room, and that's what the actual story was.
Interesting.
But I'm curious to find out. But yeah, France look good. Players that have maybe not been quite at the level we remember. There's a lot of this going on, actually. Peter Steph Totoy is back towards the PSTD, giving people PTSD again.
Nice.
But we've got like Marchand, looks like Marchand again. Dante, like you say,
He looks very good.
Looks
very powerful.
Very good. And no worries with Jalabert. He's all right.
He's very good. Now, I'd like to talk...
Phil's got the story for you.
I do have the story.
Yeah.
Bastareaud had told police he was attacked from behind by 5 men outside his hotel early on Sunday morning, leaving him with a serious eye injury requiring stitches.
Did they say, this is MAGA country? Jussi Bastareaud.
Love that.
Matthew
They're all holding Subway sandwiches.
However, he reconsidered his position after the New Zealand police, Wellington police, said that there was no evidence to support Bastareaud's version of events, including all known CCTV footage from the Holiday Inn, which showed him entering the hotel without the injuries. He admitted overnight he had lied and had actually hit his head on a table in his hotel room after drinking too much following his team's Saturday night loss to the All Blacks.
Why?
He didn't want to admit that he'd fallen over.
Just admit he'd fallen over.
Yeah, but because to accuse 5 men of attacking you from behind is going to be, it makes it a big deal.
What happened to them?
Yeah,
where were they? Are they dead?
Exactly. Like, someone's going to find them. Exactly. Someone's going to find these 5 guys when a sports star is attacked. So, never mind. He was a young man. It was 2009. That was many, many moons ago.
Wow.
So just to talk about Jalabert for a second.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
First half was good. Second half was sensational. Like, when he decided to go forward and decided to start playing a bit more.
That break off Dupont.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always had a suspicion that Ntamack plays for France because of his relationship with Dupont. It's just nice. And he's class. He's absolutely class. And there's no two ways about it. But my suspicion was Jalabert might be the better all-round fly half. And I think with an extended run in the team, he's going to be very hard to dislodge. But there again, imagine a team with Jalabert and Ntamack.
Yeah, you could do it. You're going to have to compromise somewhere, though, because you've got to could play 15.
Ntamack was originally the compromise because he's moved from 12 to 10.
To 10.
So he can go back, but then, of course, you don't have the Dante power.
Dante and Fickou. Because what I loved about this French team, there are times in the second half where they exploited it brilliantly, particularly for Pinot's second try. The threat of Fickou and Dante, and others, it's not just them, but Aldrit or Marchand or Olivon, running in the kind of midfield channels, meant that Australia too frequently defended too tight, which meant that there was space for Villiers or Pinot out wide. And for the second
all those names
Pinot
you mentioned, oh my God, there's just incredible players everywhere.
They've got so much talent.
On Villiers, I mean, when I was watching him, I was thinking, do you know who this guy is? This is the guy who we are told, what's his name is? Oh,
Colby?
No, Exeter Chiefs.
Jack Noel. Yeah.
Villiers was everywhere. I thought he was awesome. He just seems to get out the tightest of holes. His kick. Please tell me you saw his kick. It was absolutely magnificent. So he sort of dances. He stops.
Oh yeah, when he's half tackled.
Oh, yeah,
and just
yeah.
pokes it through.
Cheers.
And
no problem.
it grubbers up. Like, it was like the perfect kick as well.
Yeah. So then Ficku's chasing that kick. He just got involved at scrum half. There's a very funny passage actually in the not Ben Mercer. It is Ben Mercer, isn't it? The guy that wrote the book.
Oh, okay.
That describes how useless Villiers was as a scrum half. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, he's got apparently like enormous hands, enormous feet, couldn't kick, couldn't pass, had no idea what to do with him, so they threw him on the wing. Anyway, worked out really well.
It's worked out okay.
But yeah, he just is so busy, and I wonder if that is a product of having his position so under threat by Billy, whatever his name is,
BRA.
Yeah, BRA, him, and then Pinot he is one of those players that is a permanent world class. Just always
he's so good,
isn't he?
And he does everything as well.
Who in that team would you describe as world class?
Pinot.
Well, you're easier to say who's not world class in that team.
Go through the team, possibly the Lucid prop.
Well,
at the minute because Cyril Bay's not there.
Yeah, Jean-Baptiste Gros.
He's good.
He's solid. Marchand's world class.
Flamont and Willems, you might say they're not world class, but they're approaching it.
They wouldn't be if you were picking the two world 15s.
It'd be Ep75 at +1.
Or the two you'd have.
Oh yeah,
Whitelock, Ritali, Ep75, and then one other probably.
Yeah.
The guy who is absolutely world class is Ramos.
Yeah. So Ramos, Penaud,
the whole back line.
Dupont, Dante, Ficku, 5 of the back line, definite.
Yeah.
And Villiers and Jalibert
or
pretty handy.
Untermack, not far off.
My
like
goodness.
Untermack because of his achievements. I think Untermack. I think he's a very, very good player. He's a solid player who can do exceptional things.
Have you seen Untermack versus Farrell in slow-mo?
Have you
when he ran round him,
No.
Like holding him off.
The handoff and the offload,
snarling Farrell, clawing at his eyes probably, and it's cool. He's like just offloads it.
I think he's generally just plays like basically the straight man. Like he just give him pass, kick, give him pass. Like, but
once a game he accelerates through a hole and scores.
The winning try in the top 14 final. There are there's only a handful of 10s in the world who would score that try. Pollard's not. Farrell, Ford are not scoring that try. Jonathan Sexton.
Marnie Libok might.
Dan Bigger is not scoring that try. Even Finn Russell is not scoring that try. No. Libok, one of the New Zealand fly halves could score that.
Barrett could.
Barrett or Munga or D-Mac. Yeah, one of those guys could. But basically no one else in World Rugby scores that try. And he does the straight man stuff well, and then he has that in his locker.
You were about to go on and talk about some positives for Australia before we got sidelined with something.
What would you say they were?
Scrummaging.
Yeah, I'd say scrummaging.
They won multiple. They won 2 back-to-back scrum penalties against that French team. When the French team was Antonio with Paul Willems behind him, they did put at times some pressure on Australia when they got, and it only happened a few times, but the first try with like the double miss pass to feed Nawaka Nitawasi, Marky Mark.
Nawanga Nitawasi.
Yes. That was lovely. But that happened because, and this was a very Sean Edwards defence thing, Pinot jammed in to try and shut them down. Pinot was defending outside 13, so the next man outside 13, and he led the line speed to try and shut the door, which is a classic old Wasps under Sean Edwards, an old Wales move. And as soon as Australia got round that, it created a run-in. It had to be excellent tries, and it was, so very good thing from Australia point of view. I thought Vuni Valu was great.
And he hasn't been great. He has not been great.
He's not been awful, but his kick chase was really good. And admittedly, he got a yellow card, which was right, but could have been one of about 5 Australian players. He took his try well as well.
I didn't think he was great, but I thought he was sort of 5% off it. Like he's just knit that one break off. Or that
So
one.
that's about 80. That's about 80% closer. Than, to where
I
he
thought
needs
you would
to be
have
from where he
loved-
was.
because his kick chase was.
Oh, you're absolutely right. If you're not kick chasing, you're not a winger to me.
Yeah.
Like, just don't even bother showing up.
So there was some positives there. Now it wasn't all positives, and their line out at times.
Well,
God,
Gordon would be a very big problem for them.
kicking in the first half, particularly where he left 8 points out there, could have been 13-16 at half time. Their line out at times was because
Both lineouts, to be fair. So I don't know if you noticed that Marchant was throwing in French vernacular some pizzas.
he was throwing a few pizzas.
And also, he wasn't hitting his not hitting his jumpers. The jumpers weren't even going up. I don't know if you noticed, like 2 or 3 lineouts in a row, he kept on saying, "I can't hear you," because the crowd is so.
Yeah, I did notice that, and that's the crowd is only going to get louder.
Yeah, I think deal with it. Like you know the crowd's going to be loud. Why have you not prepared for this?
Yeah. And you saw what game was it? There was a game where the scrum half was relaying the message. It might have been this game. The scrum half was relaying the message to the hooker for the lineouts instead of the jumper to allow the jumpers to get set up. And so the message.
And also, if you're France, I'm going to stick my neck out here and say, I bet you can disguise your line-out calls, even if they're explicit, fairly well, because you're French.
Yeah.
So just shout them.
Yeah.
Second jumper, as if they're going to know. Maybe they do, but I doubt it.
They were worried about Luke Pearce.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he'll be communicating to the England camp.
How many journalists were saying, isn't it brilliant? Isn't it brilliant that Luke Pearce said a few words in French? Like, all you need to do to get the adulation of the English press is say 1 or 2 words in French, and they think you are...
No,
it's just different gravy.
He did quite a bit in French, but my favourite was "Advantage terminé."
All right, thanks.
Say advantage over.
They'll get it.
Okay. But yeah, I think this is two of the teams who are now they're at different stages, but they are both building into the World Cup. Not all teams are building well into the World Cup. England, no. Wales, no. All Blacks, based on this week, no. But I think Australia, they're a very young team. Do you know who was the most capped player in that Australian 23?
Yeah, Bell.
Nope.
What? Of course it is.
Nope.
Would it be?
It's not Arnold. Skelton.
It's not. Even the other Arnold wouldn't have been.
Okay. No, it wasn't Marika. And
no, Corey Batty wasn't
Sammy
there.
Wasn't.
The prop.
Parecki's been around for a couple of years. It's not like him, is it?
Parecki's been around for a while. With 48 caps after that game.
Oh, okay.
Taniela Tupou.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
That is... I was surprised, but then you look at the team and you're like, God, these guys. Like, Blake Shoop, Matt Faisler, Zane Nongor.
Yeah, if you want
Matt
some analysis, JB, I'll do some great analysis on these boys.
Yeah.
Good boys. Love their rugby. Good Aussie lads.
Honest lads, aren't they?
Honest lad, yeah. Hard working.
I've got to say, I actually really respect this approach by Eddie Jones. Maybe it's because, with England he had his settled team and, he had to stick with his guns because those are the guys he selected a long time ago.
He churned, the Eddie Jones story at England, he churned through a shed load of players.
But in the training squads, there's not as many of them. Some did. Yeah. Some got 27 minutes and then we never saw them again. But there's so many brought into the training squads.
Yeah.
I think it was over 150 players in the training squads.
In the early days of Eddie Jones, like the very early days, he did change it up a lot. So I really like this Australia team. The fact that they have changed it, they have left Cooper at home, they have left Quade Cooper home. I love that. I absolutely love it. And handed it over to new lads because he's not going to win it with those guys. He's just not. So why not give it to someone else?
This is such a young team that hear me now, believe me later. 4 years time, they'll be more interesting if they don't fire Eddie Jones.
They are 0-5 under Eddie Jones's reign, but
they are.
Yet it feels more.
It's more positive than
what?
Borthwick's room.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty negative on them. I mean,
on Australia.
Yeah, look, they're young, and I appreciate that approach. But so far, I'm not sure. Would I? No, actually, no. I am going to go with you because it is a young team, isn't it? It's not as if he's trashed a proven team.
Yeah. He's ripped apart a team that for whatever reason, wasn't working and wasn't right, and therefore you are in this position. Now, I think Australia will get out of their group. I think they'll top their group with this very young team.
I think they may well get to a semi-final.
Yeah, I tend to agree. If they top their group, they're most likely playing most likely playing England or Samoa, and they'll beat one of those two. Yeah. As long as they avoid Argentina, they'll be in a semi-final. And then even when against Argentina, they've got a shot. Argentina would be favourites in my mind, but they've got a shot.
Well, yeah. So I guess the point here is they can only get better.
Yeah, they
can only get better.
This was not a bad performance. If they kick those points and they managed to stop one of those miraculous tries, this is not a bad result. This could have ended up.
It looked
30,
like a beatdown.
It could have ended up 30-35.
So England,
and it didn't, and I should note that. But
so England, they more closely resemble a different team who failed miserably at a World Cup. But I'll tell you about that next podcast.
What a tease.
I'm wondering what that might be. Right, yes, so you may have listened to the England one already. If you haven't, go and listen to that in the feed. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening. Hit your emails, get your emails in at contacteggchasers@gmail.com and get more content at patreon.com/eggchasers, which helps us keep the lights on, keep this show on the road, as we have been doing for very nearly we're about a week and a half shy of 10 years. Let the boys play.
The United States Border Patrol has exciting and rewarding career opportunities with the nation's largest law enforcement organization.
Earn great pay with outstanding federal benefits and up to $20,000 in recruitment incentives. Learn more online at cbp.gov/careers/USBP.
Explore beyond the stratosphere in Museum of the Bible's compelling exhibition, Scripture and Science, Our Universe, Ourselves, Our Place, in Washington, D.C., open now through January 15th. Featuring artifacts from trailblazers in history like Isaac Newton, Nicholas Copernicus, and hidden figures like Dorothy Vaughan. This exhibit guides you through groundbreaking discoveries and thought-provoking questions. Come and see how Scripture and Science have shaped our world. Get your tickets today at museumofthebible.org.
$88 billion is just a number, but not when we use it for our community benefits plan. It can be used to help deliver the promise of an education. We'll empower young entrepreneurs through the creation of the Howard University and PNC National Center for Entrepreneurship. And uplift small businesses with access to the capital they need in order to grow. It's not just about dollars, it's about change. PNC,